Hey, flip side of adversity, fam. Before we actually jump into tonight's conversation, I want to name what many of us are feeling, but haven't quite had the language yet to label it. Ayana Fernandez Pilgrim says there is a loud quaking happening right now. And when I think about how that term resonates with me, I'm not just talking about systems, headlines, or the economy. I'm actually talking about the internal shaking, the way leadership feels heavier, decisions feel more layered, and the ground beneath what once felt stable, it actually no longer feels certain anymore. I'll be honest with you, I feel it too. Even in seasons of purpose, of calling, of growth, there are moments when the noise of change rattles your confidence, your capacity, and even your clarity. But here's what I'm learning: a quake doesn't only come to destroy you, sometimes it comes to disrupt what can no longer hold you. So, as leaders, in the middle of the shaking, this is the invitation to pause, to pivot with intention, and to stop trying to navigate uncertainty all by yourself. This is the moment to identify community that steadies you, values that ground you, and wisdom that helps you move forward without losing yourself in the process. That's why tonight's conversation matters so deeply. We are not here to just romanticize the shaking, ignore the grief, or rush past the discomfort. We're here to actually talk about leadership, leaders that can remain rooted while the ground is moving, how to lead with integrity, humanity, and discernment when certainty is no longer guaranteed. If you're feeling the quake, you're not weak, you're awake. And tonight, we're going to explore what it means to respond not with fear, but with clarity, connection, and courage. So I want you to take a breath, lean in. This conversation is for this moment, and it's for you. We're going live right now on the flip side. Making strong leaders in this season. Leadership is influence. It's rooted in the responsibility you take. You pay attention to the patterns, your calm, your strength, your hope. It's all integrated. We are living in a time where trust is fragile and people are watching not just what leaders say, but how they decide. Integrity is not optional anymore. Obedience is going to cost you. In this season, we're not just flipping adversity, we're forming leaders who can carry what comes next. Leaders from across all dimensions of fields and spaces, they're going to come together to give you the best of their wisdom. And I want you to leave each episode with a call to action. That's the work, that's the calling, and that's the conversation we're stepping into together. I am so excited about this conversation. Have you ever waited for an event, an experience with so much anticipation? I am anticipating this conversation being like a warm blanket to you. If you are feeling uncomfortable, uncertain, if you're feeling that quaking that was mentioned in the intro, I want you again to take a breath, lean back, settle in, and listen to the words of our guest, her wisdom, her expertise, and her strategy that will support all of us. I'm including myself because your girl is quaking too. She is here to help us settle, to help us reframe, and to shift perspective. And for girlfriends, She's also here to help us persevere. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Ayana Fernandes Pilgrim is a career and life transformation coach and talent strategist with over 20 years of experience leading global workforce and talent initiatives at Fortune 100 companies, including Bank of America, Pfizer, Cigna, and Vanguard. An educator and thought leader, she teaches leadership and human capital management in Bard College's MBA program and is a sought after national speaker on inclusive hiring and the future of work. She is the founder and CEO of the Talent Cornerstone Company, where she helps professionals and organizations navigate workforce transformation, reclaim voice and boundaries, and build purpose aligned, sustainable careers in the age of AI. Yes, I said it. I know. Hold on. Shake off the fear. Even in the age of AI. So, welcome to the flip side of adversity, Ayana Fernandes Pilgrim.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you. I've been counting down to this time. It's an honor to be in community with you and with everyone at home. I'm so glad to be in conversation on this important topic with you tonight.
Yes. And ever since we met at She Shines, like I was sharing with you off camera, I immediately knew she's going to have to come into the studio. This little 7-minute conversation is just getting me to where I still have so many more questions.
Right.
And so I'm so appreciative of your yes.
Thank you.
To frame us, I'm actually curious about you created 3 buckets for this conversation, and you framed them out as naming the moment and your personal story, thought leadership, the collective quaking and community response, and the third bucket, strategy, becoming, and practical guidance for listeners. Can you tell me a little bit why you created those 3 sections for us to talk about this quaking?
I'm so glad you asked that first, just to ground us in the conversation. I think just like you mentioned at the top of your comments, you said it. There's a lot of righteous tension around new technology, particularly artificial intelligence. And so we have to acknowledge that and meet people where they are on the journey. And many of our listeners are going through just groundbreaking change. The earth is moving beneath their feet as it relates to their careers, as it relates to their relationships, right? And where they are at in their lives. So I figure starting with the personal journey matters. Because above all else, that's what qualifies me in this work. You can't say you're a career and life transformation coach unless you've been through the fire, right, in your career, in your life. And so it's my hope and it's my prayer that as we have this conversation, that listeners will hear in my personal story strategy. They'll also hear the spirit of overcoming. They'll also hear a testament of what's possible when you decide to make a different choice. When you see that you can choose freedom, right? So we can start there, but then overlay just some market intelligence, what's happening in the workforce today, because I think there are a lot of misnomers around what's happening, but I think there are a lot of data points and signals that can tell us where we need to go in terms of our strategy. And the last piece of our agenda, which is really activating our listeners to take action in their own personal lives. So that's why the flow. It's a little bit of art and science and a little bit of the old technology, like I like to say, and the new technology mixed together.
Yes. As you were just explaining it, there's such an element of authenticity to naming the experience and connecting it to a personal story, and recognizing you walked right into another conversation we were having off camera around the decisions that we have to make, and remembering that it is connected to a decision. You are not powerless.
Yes.
and what choices are you making even in this season and time of uncertainty
Mhm.
and constant change. I asked a group of leaders last week. I was training them. I said, does anyone feel like this pace is like out of control? And people's eyes rolled,
Mhm.
people raised their hands. So thank you for starting us there.
No, thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you.
So when we first met at She Shines, you shared this comment around quaking.
Mhm.
What does that phrase actually mean to you, and how are you connecting it to the workforce?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. And I feel like that's a spirit led statement
Mm.
when we met at She Shines, which is such a beautiful convening,
Yes.
of women who are really just hungry for purpose and hungry for betterment in their own lives and in their communities
Mhm.
as well. And so when I first said that, it was really to kindle in us a thought around the palpable tension that we face right now.
Mhm.
There are so many articles
Mhm.
that have been written over the last year and even back to COVID, if we think back, where folks were starting to talk about in the workforce, there's quiet quitting,
Yes.
right? Do you remember that
Yes,
during
I do.
COVID?
Yes, I
And they
do.
said folks are just kind of giving up on the job and it's
Mm.
quiet, right? And then fast forward over the last year, there was this new terminology coming
Mm.
up. And they were saying, oh, folks are quietly cracking. It's quiet cracking. And
Mm.
as I read those articles and also juxtaposed that with our reality as Black women and what's happening, I said, no, someone needs to talk about this. With us, it's a loud quaking. Loud meaning you can
Mhm.
hear it,
Mhm.
but quaking meaning you can
Mhm.
feel it.
Mhm.
When we think about the racial wealth gap
Mm.
and government workers being laid off en masse, many of them Black women,
Yes.
impacting generational wealth.
Yes.
So it's more than just a temporal moment in time. Some of the things that have transpired over the last year in particular will have some lasting impact. We have to acknowledge that. So the
Mhm.
loud quaking language is to connote this is bigger than what it seems.
Mm.
And it's also to symbolize that Black women are often the bellwether, right?
Yeah.
For other things in the economy and in the
Mhm.
workforce. And
Mhm.
right now, we see what is happening. We heard about massive layoffs this week with two large
Yes.
organizations at a massive scale. This is just happening in waves, but it's going to increase. And as it increases, we need to be prepared. And
Yes.
how do we get prepared? We get prepared in community, as you alluded to at the top of our conversation. So the loud quaking is palpable. This is not quiet,
Mhm.
and we shouldn't be quiet about it either.
And what's beautiful for me is it actually, on a personal note, since we're starting with the personal story
Hmm.
piece, I would have to say at the top of 2025, I I was shaken. By the end of 2025, I felt like I was in pieces. And I wasn't loud.
Hmm.
I was quiet. And I truly just felt shaken.
Mm.
But there was something about you saying the loud quake that leaped in my soul. Like there's a shift that is happening, especially within Black women. We did need a season in time to allow ourselves to be shaken,
Hmm.
to feel um, the injustice, the moral injury, all of those things. But I feel like there's this quaking that's happening is connected to a rebirth of
Yes, yes,
in some way.
yes.
How does that resonate with
A
you?
1,000%. 1,000%. I feel like the work that I am doing now,
Mhm.
tell you a little bit about my family history here because it connects. Both of my great grandmothers were midwives,
Mm.
right? And many of our listeners may have family members who were midwives. Some of you may be doulas and doing this work.
Mhm.
But how I describe the work that I'm doing now
Mm.
to help women to facilitate life and career transformation, I'm a new life midwife.
Mm.
I'm using the same type of gifts and talents that my ancestors demonstrated and had It's in my DNA.
Yeah.
So I have an obligation to use it too in this season. And I feel like that is happening at a massive scale. And so even the birthing process for my
Mhm.
program, which I'll talk about later, it took 9 months. Right? So divine, it took 9 months. And it came with quaking and shaking and healing, right? And so I feel like right now that is happening en masse for many women. The quaking is an invitation. I like to say, what you
Mm.
feel like was designed to kill you, it actually kindles you. It kindles you if you let it.
We keep hitting
Can
that.
I
We
steal your
keep hitting
thought?
right there.
If you let
Yes.
it.
If you let it. If you
Yeah.
let it. Can you take us into your actual experience? So you
Yeah.
shared at the top that you wanted to start with naming and the personal story. So what part of your life, and the name of the
Yes.
podcast is The Flip Side of Adversity.
Yes.
So what actually was happening in your life when you felt quaking and potentially even a shift?
I'm gonna take a drink of water before, just
Yes,
to
yes,
reset.
yes. Yes.
So for me, this is such an important part of the conversation, um, because it led me to this work.
Mm.
So I'll kind of go back a little bit if you
Mhm.
would indulge me for a second. Growing up, I grew up in Massachusetts and child of immigrants. So I'm a
Mm.
daughter of the diaspora. So my dad was from Barbados. My mother's family was from the Cape Verde Islands, West Africa. And so they raised us in an environment that was not very diverse, but they instilled in us such a keen sense of knowing who you were,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
That matters. And so I learned a great deal about parenting from them. Growing up in the Reagan administration
Mhm.
time and all that came with that, they took us to see the performances of South African artists.
Mm.
They boycotted certain companies because of what was
Mhm.
happening. Very sounds familiar, right?
Mhm.
To what we are having to do today. But growing up in that environment, they instilled in me an understanding of what was important. And as I was an adolescent, both of my parents had racial discrimination lawsuits
Mm.
at different times. And it was so palpable. Talk about a quaking, impacts the whole family ecosystem when that
Mhm.
happens to a parent,
Yeah.
right? Your income, the accessibility to certain things, the stress of racialized workforce trauma is significant.
Mhm.
So for me, that kindled my purpose. I thought I was going to do employment law. I said, I'm going to defend people like my parents and I'm going to, go to court. God had different plans. So I pursued the
Mm.
path of HR, right? And I
Mhm.
started to focus on hiring and I loved it.
Mm.
So I worked in corporate for 21 years. And the last 5, almost 6 years of my experience, I had a great privilege to head up a diversity recruiting and emerging talent function for a major firm, Vanguard, which is not far from where
Mhm.
we're sitting right now.
Mhm.
And I was working so hard before George Floyd's murder
Mhm.
and after. And so, for all of the DEI leaders that might be listening and on the call, we know what that sprint looked like.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sprint.
Sprint.
So I was
Sprinting.
sprinting
Yes.
for 5
Was there.
years, almost
Mhm.
6 years, to try and get as much inroads that we could
Mhm.
make within that time. And through conservative systems and channels, right? Really trying to build relationship and make change. And the work that I did with the team that I was able to foster and build, and the efforts that we were able to design global inclusive hiring
Mm.
frameworks, we were making progress. But by the end of my time there, I could feel the tide turning in terms of where things were going broadly,
Mhm.
with the challenge to diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And it was very stressful to work through that, right?
Mhm.
And I started to have health challenges. And I know you know about this, right?
So many women.
Significant, right? So I
Yeah.
had 2 biopsies in 1 year.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I began to ask myself those questions around what matters? Who am I?
Mm.
And I started to have a mantra, and I would say it every day. I know who I am, I know whose I am, and I know what I'm worthy of.
Mm.
And it was a reminder of what I had learned as a child. No matter what space you go in, know who you are, know what you carry, know what you're worthy of. And
Mm.
as I started to ask myself questions and introspection about what do I want next, what do I feel led to do, I felt a strong calling to make a different choice. And this was in the context of also going through divorce.
Mhm.
I had separated from my husband.
Mhm.
That was a difficult choice, but a necessary
Mhm.
choice. So I had showed myself I can do hard things. I can make difficult choices, right? And so this was no different. I loved the job, but I could see that my assignment was complete. And I felt the
Mm.
Spirit of the Lord say, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant. Your assignment is complete.
Yes.
Go in peace." And so I gave my notice and I
Mhm.
chose my freedom and I chose my health and my family to
Yeah.
prioritize, making sure my daughters were good,
Mm.
making sure I was good, because
Mhm.
during that time I had lost 7 family members within 2 years. Come from a very large family,
Mhm.
but close family members, aunties, cousins,
Mm.
my godmother. I will never forget, I had to
Mm.
travel to Barbados to help to eulogize my aunt and godmother, my aunt
Mhm.
Oriole, God rest her soul. And I was in the thick of making that decision. And I remember I had to rush to get my passport made, and they took my picture. And I've kept the picture. I looked so angry and just upset
Mm.
and sad because I had all this grief pent up, and I didn't have the opportunity to process it. So
Yeah.
when I left my role, it took a lot of courage, but it was required. And when
Yeah.
I went into that period of sabbatical, real Sabbath rest,
Mm.
I had waves of grief. Verity, I
Mhm.
had waves of grief. I
Mm.
grieved COVID.
Mhm.
How many of us didn't have a chance to grieve that? Grieve that. I grieved my aunties. I grieved my cousins. I grieved having to leave a job,
Mhm.
right, that I enjoyed and people that I enjoyed working with, but it was required.
Mhm.
For my integrity, for my alignment with my purpose, it was required. So
Mhm.
that quaking is sometimes an invitation, but we have to allow it for us to hear it. We have to allow ourselves to hear what it's saying. Sometimes we push through it and we power
Yes.
through it and we say, "Oh, okay, I had the biopsy. It's fine. The result was good."
Mhm.
What if it wasn't good? I
Right.
have friends where it wasn't good.
Right.
And so, by the grace of God, my results were fine. And I was able to move into that season of rest and healing.
Mhm.
But it was through that stillness
Mm.
when I finally chose rest. I know you're a fan of rest, right? And talking about rest, when you finally choose to rest and get still and get present, that's when you can hear what's next. That's when
Mm.
the talent cornerstone idea came to be, and I could see how I could use my gifts and talents and my experience to be of service in this critical moment in history that we are in. So it's called for such a time as this,
Mhm.
and I am willing, send me, I'll go. And
Yeah.
so that's what brought me through, but it was through a lot of faith
Yeah.
and community that I was able to heal
Yeah.
and come through that with creating a new blueprint for my life.
The concept of the quaking, I think there's so many layers. First of all, let me just honor the fact there are so many layers
Mm-hmm.
to what you have said that connect to the previous leaders who have been on the show. So I shared with you, as I've shared with everyone, I'm identifying 47 leaders, and you're the fourth.
Mm-hmm.
And our very first leader, Dr. Danny Martin, um, wanted to talk about the weight that leaders carry connected to grief,
Mm-hmm.
grace, and overcoming. And sometimes we muscle through and not allowing ourselves to grieve.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about this quaking can feel really scary and confusing
Yes.
at the same time. Can you speak to someone who is in the
Mm-hmm.
quaking and they are misunderstanding and thinking of it as an indictment instead of an invitation?
Mm. I love that you use the word indictment.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
just going to say a lot on that for a minute.
Mhm.
Pause. That's important in this
Yeah.
moment where the very definition of certain people's work is being redefined.
Yes.
People like my mom, who has spent 50 years
Mhm.
in nursing, for nursing then to be devalued in a way, right? Publicly to try and attempt to devalue
Mhm.
bodies
Mhm.
of work.
Mhm.
But I would invite our listeners to think about some of what is happening right now is an illusion.
Wow.
Our ancestors taught us, if anything, I know to be true as someone who comes from a Cape Verdean background,
Mhm.
our revolutionaries would always say, the struggle continues, but victory is certain. And there was so much wisdom in that, that they knew to focus on the latter part of the quote
Mhm.
heavily, that
Mhm.
victory was certain. And in fact, it led many revolutionaries throughout the
Mhm.
continent to become victorious because
Mhm.
they anchored to that.
Mhm.
And so in this moment, we can't get hung up on the images that are being put forward of Black women downtrodden. Some images have been manipulated and whatnot, right?
Mhm.
But having us look very downtrodden, um, we can tap into that ethos sometimes subconsciously and believe that that's our fate and that's what's happening. And we can dwell in the place of struggle. But I think it's important in this moment that we understand the context that we sit in is struggle, absolutely. But we don't have to um, succumb to it. We don't have to be
Mm.
consumed by it. We should be concerned, but we don't have
Mhm.
to be consumed.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
maybe has happened to you if you've been laid off, if you've been pushed out, if you've had to ethically resign because you couldn't get behind the drawback on the
Mhm.
work, all of those things, you can get in your head and think, is this about me or did I
Absolutely.
not do enough?
Mhm.
Especially for those of us who grew up in a time of respectability politics. If I just go to the right school, if I just do the right things, if I just show up with my hair combed a certain way, then no, those days are gone. Like we
Mhm.
cannot even
Mhm.
think that that is what it is. So I would invite our listeners to think that they should lean on the fact that yes, we are in a struggle right now, but we need to focus on victory is certain. And how we do that is through our own individual self-leadership first. Put your mask on first.
Mhm.
Attend to yourself. Understand it's not personal. This is what's happening, but it is an invitation for you if you choose to let it
Mhm.
be. I, right?
What is self-leadership in your words, in your language, in your definition?
I think self leadership is going to be talked about more and more in the AI
Mhm.
economy.
Mhm.
What used to be soft skills are going to be rebranded as essential skills.
Mm.
So, for all of my brother and sister colleagues who might be listening, who worked in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and maybe are in Exodus now or on the sidelines,
Mhm.
remember all of the things that you were doing: crisis management, communications,
Mhm.
project management. All of those things are going to be required. So,
Mhm.
self leadership has to do with emotional intelligence. It has to do with self awareness. It has to do with agency, right?
Mm.
Ida B. Wells told us if we don't tell our own story, we lose our agency. That's power. We have to be the first ones to accept where we are and confront the difficult decisions that maybe we're being confronted with, but view it through the lens of an invitation, of a calling to a higher body of work where you can be of
Mhm.
service with your gifts and talents, and you might have to transmute them.
Yeah.
They maybe once were used in one occupation and now they'll be used in another.
Mhm.
Where we're headed with the workforce is going to be more workforce fluidity.
Mhm.
So people will be doing certain regular skills in different projects at different times. So it won't be relegated to a quote unquote job as we see today. So be open to release your imagination to the possibilities that
Mm.
exist in this economy. We have tools that our ancestors didn't have
Mhm.
that we can leverage. Yes, there are righteous tensions around the tools. I acknowledge that, around bias, around the
Mhm.
environmental impact, around dysregulation. There's a lot of work to be done. But if we don't get proximate to those tools,
Mhm.
we won't be the solution makers of tomorrow. So I would say shift your mindset. Allow yourself to drop limiting beliefs, which get you in a place of shame and blame and beating yourself up. Elevate
Yeah.
your thinking to a higher vibration, which says this is an invitation and I can
Mhm.
answer the call to do something different.
And there's something grounding when you said and acknowledged that the present is hard, but the victory is certain. It almost makes your back straighten up a bit more to recognize that victory is still connected to your identity, even when there are so many distractions that
Mm-hmm.
are diabolically designed
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to have you constantly feel off kilter.
Yes.
But there's a grounding when you can say, but victory is certain.
Yes. And that has to become our mantra too,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's a Ghanaian proverb that says it's impossible to fail. And we know our faith teaches us that
Mhm.
too, right?
Mhm.
Could do all things,
Yeah.
right? So we
Yeah.
have to tap into the faith and the practices of our ancestors. And we have to look to our ancestors as powerful examples of reinvention and reimagination and redesign and
Mhm.
blueprint builders. I think of Ida B. Wells,
Mhm.
right? As an educator shifting to journalism. I think about,
Do you
right?
shift?
So many people shifted
Mhm.
in the past. I think about modern examples. Nicole Hannah Jones, right? Being
Mhm.
at an institution, being mistreated, not getting
Mhm.
tenure, and saying, it's an opportunity to realign,
Yeah.
to an institution that will respect my gifts and abilities and allow me to soar and really be in my sweet spot. So
Yeah.
alignment is important for job seekers to assess right now, people who are in
Yeah.
transition. Assess alignment. It's going to be really important. And that's an extension of self leadership, your ability to be
Mhm.
aware enough to
Mhm.
realize in what environments you will thrive and which environments you will not,
Mm.
right?
And remain courageous enough to recognize when I'm in an environment that I will not thrive, I can make another pivot,
Right.
that I have the skill set that is transferable
Mm-hmm.
into another space.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also going back to your statement. You have to be willing to lift the limiting
Yeah, beliefs and
beliefs
mindsets. Yeah.
to even be able to see that.
Right, because so many of us are stuck in perfectionism. We were talking about this before, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism, people pleasing, and those two are, I think, twin cousins. Because right, many who have one have the other, right? And we get stuck in these cycles and these patterns
Mm-hmm.
where we're just stopping our own selves. We're getting in our own way, right? So those that will master the future and future economy will be really great stewards of leading themselves first
Yeah.
before they can lead others, including agents.
Uh, so I want to jump into this concept that you placed in um, our plan for this conversation of talking about radical imagination
Hmm.
and building a new blueprint
Hmm.
that's rooted in values rather than survival.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, I think survival and scarcity
Mm-hmm.
mindset, lack mindset, and some would say spirit as well, right? Those things can really hold us in a place that prevent us from even giving ourselves permission to even think of purpose or think of a higher call in our life that might not fit in a nice, neat box,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of what we
Mm-hmm.
perceive to be a reliable or respectable profession. I think of folks in the arts that way, right? I just had this conversation with my daughter, Virgie, the other day. She's a junior in high school
Um,
and starting to consider college, and we're talking about purpose and just inviting that conversation. It was beautiful to just see her feel the permission to explore the different things that she might do. And it's my hope that more of us would have that, a shedding off of those old behaviors that at one time maybe protected us.
uh-huh.
Sometimes those things protect us, right, in a
Mm-hmm.
strange way. So we
Mm-hmm.
do have to honor and acknowledge, okay, I was a bit of a perfectionist, guilty as charged, recovering perfectionist, right? But that also allowed me to excel in the corporate environment. That
Mm-hmm.
also allowed me to, have really great results. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a good side of it. But then I have
Mm-hmm.
to also acknowledge the dark side of it
Mm-hmm.
that would hold me back or make it take longer to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have to come to a place of first reflection and an honest acceptance of what those patterns of behavior and what those mindsets were,
Mm-hmm.
to then get to the place to be willing enough to release them.
Mm. To release them, to
Yes.
release them. When you um, are thinking about the act of inclusive hiring
Hmm.
with the quaking that's happening now, what what would you begin to say to those in the workforce and those looking
Yes.
for people to be added to teams, what would you say to them in this time?
Yeah, I love this question. And I'll start with the latter part. What would you say
Mhm.
to those that are in the organizations
Mhm.
hiring?
Mhm.
And what would you say to the organizations? Because I think
Mhm.
I've been on different calls of late with talent leaders from across top firms and just hearing data that's being presented on candidate perspectives
Mhm.
and on what is shifting. And one thing concerns me. There's this conversation around companies getting rid of what they call broad, diffuse strategies.
Mm. Mhm.
And sometimes that can be a synonym for equity. And so we want to be
Mm.
cautious if you are
Mhm.
inside an organization and there are, real goals that need to be met around efficiency and reducing costs and all of that. Try to
Mhm.
continue to do the work of inclusive hiring.
Mhm.
Try to find the way
Mm.
through those new strategy resets to
Mhm.
continue to maintain and salvage the relationships that you have with diversity centered organizations. So I think of our HBCU family,
Mm.
right? I think of nonprofit organizations like Inroads, which
Mhm.
I am an alum of, and others in this moment. They're at risk,
Mhm.
right? There's a risk for the support and the continued engagement. And I think if you are inside of a firm, try to still keep those commitments, even if you have to do it in new ways, because there's a risk if organizations just pull out. You already know in our community, the
And what they
trust.
right, right, you lose, um, integrity, you
Correct.
lose credibility,
Correct.
and it still leaves you open for, repercussions.
Yes, because what I predict is going to happen
Mhm.
is that because so many firms are receding on the work
Mhm.
and pulling out of those
Mhm.
relationships,
Mhm.
there is going to be a precipitous dip. I think in some firms, I think in others
Mm.
it'll be less,
Mhm.
but there is going to be a dip in representation in the corporate world.
Mm.
Just like we've seen with affirmative action ban, if you look
Mhm.
at some universities, I mentioned I'm
Mhm.
helping my daughter look at
Mhm.
colleges, some of those percentages of Black students were cut in half within 2 years.
Mm.
So there's not going to be no consequence of,
Mhm.
rooting out some of these systems. So that's what I would say for the organizational
Mhm.
tips and for the leaders within organizations. Don't give up. Keep trying to find the way
Mm.
to re strategize around how new systems can be designed with the technology,
Can I
right?
also, because there's been advice, I've been in spaces where the specific conversation has been, continue to find the ways and back it up with your data.
Yes, this is the secret sauce. You have to lead this type of work right now with
Mhm.
two things: storytelling,
Mm.
because there's still a lot within organizations to be learned about communities that have been historically underserved and undersought
Mm.
after.
Mhm.
So that's there was still on a learning
Mhm.
curve in many organizations with that. So the storytelling matters greatly, but the data has to be added with it.
Mhm.
And what is happening, what I'm concerned with as someone who led in that way and was able
Mhm.
to see progress made in that way, is if firms are saying, oh, we're just going to bake equity in, we're not going to say the E word anymore. First, how do we believe you? And second, how
Right.
are you tracking that?
Right.
And so I predict there'll be new technologies that will come up, and hopefully Talent Cornerstone will be a part of those solutions along the way to help with some of this, because they're gnarly challenges and they
Mhm.
will have consequence. And we
Mhm.
will have to repair because there's a confluence of things happening. You have the demographic shifting by 2030, but you also have roughly 60 to 70% of HR work being automated by that time.
Mm.
And so if you have technology and artificial intelligence leading it, you want to make sure you have human oversight and
Right.
humans who are inclusive and humans who have
Right.
different backgrounds
Right.
so we can get that right. So that's the organizational
Mhm.
side. For individuals out there who are actually seeking now and are in transition and they don't know what to do, and for example, their occupation is being demonized or
Mm.
looked upon in a negative light, look at your transferable skills. Be
Mm.
open to new possibilities. Be open to do new titles. Your identity is not defined by your title or your
Mm.
level.
That's a whole workshop by itself.
Yes, it's not. It's not relegated by your
Mm.
job. This is what's happening, the quaking. People are having to accept, I was at that job for 20 years, but that's not me. No,
That's
it's
not
not
my
you.
identity.
It's not your identity.
There's so much more to you.
Yes, that part, right? So people have to just be
Mm.
willing to be open to new possibilities.
Mhm.
You may have been, working in education administration, in the education
Mhm.
sector, maybe your role got cut. You can use those skills in industry.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
looking for a lot of folks with educational background with the new AI economy and teaching people skills. There is so much new opportunity that will be coming, but we have to be open to the possibility that we can consider a new path and transfer our skills to do something different. So don't be afraid of the technology, lean in.
And that actually leads me into you're not only on the flip side this evening, but you're also going to be one of our speakers for Girlfriend Gathering.
Mhm.
And each one of the speakers has a different word, and your word is persevere. And you're continuing to, and we'll get into Unbound and Unbothered, but your word is persevere. I love for you to talk to the girlfriends who are registered, the girlfriends
Mhm.
who are thinking about registering. What are you hoping they also understand in this quaking, connected to persevering?
Yeah, I love this, and I'm so
Yeah,
excited to
I am
be
too. I am
with
too.
you
Yes, yes,
and the
yes.
girlfriends in
Yeah.
March. I'm so
Yes,
excited
in
about it
March.
because there's a move I feel like that is happening right now
Mhm.
within our community. When we convene, there's always a move, no matter what
Yes.
moment in time and space we're in. But I'm particularly looking forward to that in March, just after Black History Month. And
Yeah.
all that comes sacred for us in that,
Mhm.
to come and speak to the women about a message that I feel like will be my magnus opum, my life's work.
Yes.
Through my healing journey, God gave me a word. We can be unbound and
Mm,
unbothered. So just
mm.
like my Bayesian ancestor Shirley Chisholm reminded us years ago to be unbought and unbossed
Yes.
during a time that was very
Yes.
controversial as well, I'm here to remind the women that you can be unbound and unbothered. What does that mean? It means
Mhm.
unbound from what we just talked about, the mindsets, the limiting
Mm.
beliefs, the behaviors, the relationships, all those things that don't serve us and they hold us back. It's like I heard a pastor once say, are you locked in a room with open doors? And I said, oh, it just hit me in my chest.
That we
Woo!
both of us went, "Oh."
It just hit me in my chest. But I think
Mm,
about that through my journey. There were chains I was just holding on to. I could have just
mm,
dropped them.
mm.
I could have just dropped them
Mhm.
at any time, but I had to come into that awareness that I could choose to let them down. And then what would happen after that would blow my mind, right? I could go into a new reality of building my own
Mm.
business and stepping into something that's more aligned with the call that I have. And so, Unbound and Unbothered, the second part of that, Unbothered, speaks to the moment that we're in. Someone might be listening and saying, how the hell are we going to be unbothered in this moment, in this week, and seeing Black women literally assaulted in
Mm.
Congress this week, and all of the horrific things that we are seeing happening around us. I'm not saying that we should not be concerned.
Right,
I'm
right.
saying don't be consumed
I'm
by
so
it to the
glad you
point
said that.
where you lose your joy,
Mm.
and you're not spending present time with your children, or you're not having moments to work out and
Mm.
and do things that are positive for your well-being. Sometimes struggle
Mhm.
can be consuming,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
the word of Unbound and Unbothered is no, you can be free. You can
Mm.
choose to be free, and you can tap into an ethos of ease in the midst of the struggle.
Mm.
It's accessible,
Yeah.
but we have to choose it. So I'm excited to lean in with the women, and we're going
Yes.
to do some demoing with AI for your career and your life transformation. We're going to be talking spiritually about these types of decisions. So I'm excited to make it an interactive session where we
Yes.
can just share with one another, get vulnerable, and just release.
Yeah. And so you see the image on the screen. If you haven't registered yet, feel free to lean in to go to livingstrongllc.com/events. And the registration is right there. Uh, we have created this space as one for women to um, lean into the big dream, the big idea, the thing that you have been sitting on, doubting, putting to the side, or waiting on. That time is over.
Mhm.
it's now time for you to identify those transferable skills, to let go of chains that are no longer serving you, and to move in a way that you will not continue to be hindered by the noise that is around you, but you will allow the quaking to ignite you so that you operate unbothered. And
Yes.
so we have six, including myself, amazing speakers, and for the first time, I am backing up these experiences with funding and support. So this February 14th, you have to make it into this room because you have to attend at least 4 of the sessions to be a part of the $5,000 Impact and Innovation Girlfriend Gathering Grant. For the first time, we are also not just giving you resources, not just giving you encouragement, but we are giving you funding. And so you have to be in the room 4 times in order to qualify to submit your application and to make your pitch. And so I say thank you to all of my speakers who have said yes. Inga did her thing last weekend. Dr.
Nice.
Jubilee is coming up in February, and Ayana is coming up in March, and the list will continue. I have so much for a season of quaking.
Yes, I'm so excited for it.
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah.
excited for what you're doing, and
Oh,
kudos to you, just to give you your flowers for being obedient to the call on your life and for creating the space, the
mm.
safe space to cultivate, an environment where women can feel safe enough to release their imagination and to dream of a new possibility for themselves. That's sacred. So thank you.
You know what? I appreciate you saying that. I think the part of me that this conversation is for me as well is connected to I know that I have been called to a purpose in this season,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it has already been revealed to me that it will not look like what I think it's supposed to look like.
Hmm.
But I've the level of the ground just shaking and not having clarity on
Hmm.
on what is happening, but really just operating from a place of faith
Yes.
is so if I can be honest, it's so unsettling.
It's hard.
It's so unsettling.
It's hard. It's the biggest faith walk, right?
Mm.
Because you can't see the steps. And so it's like, what next when you're accustomed to
Mhm.
things being a little bit clearer? That uncertainty can be jarring.
Yeah.
It can be jarring.
In a season in which things are moving so fast, and you've referenced AI already
Hmm.
a couple of times, and AI is actually a part of that fast pace, and
Hmm.
so moving at a speed that literally blows all of our minds. And when we talk about people of color,
Hmm.
we can come with so much skepticism
Yes.
and reluctance.
Hmm.
What advice
Yeah.
are you giving communities, especially communities of color,
Hmm.
around this conversation?
Yeah. This is so important right now, right? In
Mm-hmm.
this moment. And I just want to acknowledge what you said about your journey personally, too, because that resonates. It takes a lot of faith.
Mm.
We can't ignore that. That is a foundation of freedom journey. And our ancestors showed us that. We have to
Yes.
be rooted
Mm.
in a faith that tells us that despite the hellish circumstances that might surround us, that we still believe victory is certain. We still believe
Mm.
freedom is around the corner. And so we have to hold on to that. So I say to you too, be encouraged, be strong and courageous. God goes with you.
Mm. Thank you,
But
sis.
to your question around the technology, I want to first acknowledge what I call the righteous tension that we as people of color as justice workers, face sustainability leaders. There's a righteous tension with the technology because there are significant impacts to the environment. There is bias, right?
Mhm.
There's going to be a new terminology that you start to hear more about, and that is algorithmic discrimination, right? So Google that, right? Look
Yes.
it up, perplexity that, however you want to look it up. There's many ways now. So there's a righteous tension that is faced with the technology. Plus, we have the history of certain tools and tactics being used in our environments and our neighborhoods and all of that. So it's very loaded. I understand that. But I also understand that the train has left the station. And I personally, can I just give you a quick
Yes.
window into how I came to getting closer to the technology and leaning into the technology? When I was on my healing period after I had left corporate, I had started to learn about, different types of ways that I could use AI for my business, building my small business. And I got on a call, and it was with Morgan DeBon, the head of Afrotech. And I was fortunate enough to, lead the investment in Afrotech in my last job and really love the work that they do. And she's a great teacher. So she was, having a class on AI, and I got ready and I called myself having my pen in my notepad. And then I got on the call, and all these agents, note takers started to join the call. And I said, wait a minute. Okay, I'm about to be left behind if I don't start to attune my focus to this a bit more. So then I, downloaded one of the, or not downloaded, but I'm dating myself. I went ahead and signed up, right?
Yes.
Signed up for one of the artificial intelligence based note takers.
Mhm.
And that opened the door. And then I started to really lean in. So I went through like 5 trainings within a year to really get engrossed and immersed in it, because I knew that instinctually, seeing what was going on in hiring and the different sectors,
Mhm.
whatever sector you are in, understand how to integrate AI into it. So
Yes.
that's going to be the critical headline. You
Mhm.
need to know how that's going to impact what you do.
Mhm.
And so in our communities, I say use it ethically.
Mhm.
Steward your time on it. Don't just leave Chat GPT open for hours on end. That impacts the environment, right? Like be a good steward of how you are learning the technology and using it. But for your career development, it can help tremendously. There are tools that are available that will help you with your resume, that will help you to think about your personal branding statement and your LinkedIn. There are a lot of tools. So for me as a coach, you might say, Ayana, why are you promoting these things? Won't they replace you as a coach? No, ma'am.
Mm-mm.
No, sir. It will not, because people need to be trained on how to leverage these tools
Right.
in an effective and an ethical way. And I would add, once I got really engrossed in it, I started to come up with tech solutions ideas for the problems that I saw when I was working in the corporate world. I would not have had those imaginations had I not gotten into the technology. So for anyone listening, if you're grappling with the scariness of that technology, use it to the point of your comfort at first. Use your discernment. Not all of it may be for you. You might not be cloning yourself yet. That's okay. But you might start to use it for efficiency with your calendar. You might start to use it for your career development.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of amazing ways that will just blow your mind when you see it happen and when you use it yourself, that can help you to save time, to scale your business, to access new possibilities, to illuminate new pathways for yourself.
Yeah.
I work with my MBA students a lot on how to conduct market intelligence, review what jobs are out there, all of that in a really sophisticated and quick way on perplexity.ai or some other tools. So don't be afraid.
Mhm.
Use it judiciously, use it responsibly, use it ethically, and allow yourself to creatively think of maybe solutions for some of the things that you see in your field or your occupation.
You can become, once you release what you're telling yourself about it, it will allow you to open yourself up to explore,
Hmm.
take risk, but then also it could lead you to just another way for a special way that you look at things to become a resource for someone else.
Yes. Yes,
Mm.
because it's not just about you.
It's not just about you.
It's not, because Maya Angelou reminded us of this, and correct me if I got the quote wrong, but she often used to say, "When you learn, teach.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if there's someone
Mhm.
in your family or your friend circle that's
Yeah.
afraid and they don't want to use it, or they're just using, ChatGPT a little bit, but they don't know,
Mhm.
and you have learned some that have just blown your mind, that have changed your
Mhm.
efficiency, share it, teach it.
Because the train has left the
It
station,
has.
and you putting your head in the sand is not going to stop. Just stop it. Like,
No,
it's not like if I ignored it, it's gonna go. It's not.
right. Exactly. So we,
And
we
we
can come
can't
up.
afford as a people
We
to
can't.
be left behind.
No, we can't. And the beauty of this moment is that we as a people have created blueprints in the midst of major industrial change in the
Mhm.
past. I think of my grandfather who worked at Bethlehem Steel, came
Mm.
here from a famine, was a farmer, right? Totally did different things to provide for his family, but built new blueprints and benefited the
Mhm.
community while he was doing it, fed the whole community with his farm
Mm.
at one point, right? So our ancestors showed us that we tap in. We're the culture creators. So if we start playing with things, we start creating new things that are amazing that will bring solutions to our problems.
So I only have 4 minutes, but something that just triggered with me in what you just, because you have mentioned our ancestors throughout this
Mhm.
conversation, and I want to honor the space that you have invited them in. My challenge is, do we have the same grit that they had? And what do we need to begin to consider about how we show up in times of adversity, that they would look at us like, what are, like, they had a
Mhm.
whole different
Mhm.
level of grit that
Yeah.
I don't know that our young people have.
Yeah.
And I would even say my own generation
Mhm.
have. What would you say about the grit that's
I
necessary?
love, love, love this question, and I'll tell you
Mm.
why. I think to the point about grit and do we have it or not? We have it, but
Mhm.
many of us don't know we have it. Right?
Yes.
That's the good
Yes.
news. You have it and you can access it. It's in your DNA. You probably have likely many examples in your DNA of family members that had to overcome great struggle, great, hard conditions, and they made it through.
Mhm.
Think about your auntie and them.
Mm.
Think about your uncle and them, right? Think about your grandparents, others, even people who weren't related to you but were play
Mhm,
family.
mhm.
You probably have some examples that you can draw on that remind you have it in you. You just need to know you have it.
Mm.
That's the powerful message. You need to know
Activated.
that you have it and activate it. I was just thinking about this the other day. I was reflecting on my grandmother, my mom's mom. She was a mother of 15 children. Her and my grandfather had 15 children.
Couldn't even imagine.
Look, I have two, and I often wonder how. But she worked in the cranberry bogs for Ocean Spray cranberry juice. Some of y'all drink that,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of Cape Verdean women did. In fact, they used to sometimes call them cranberries because they worked in the cranberry bog. But agricultural workers, farmers, hard work. And I was thinking,
Mhm.
my mom always tells a story how she almost gave birth to my uncle Earl in the cranberry bog, working, almost at full
Mm.
term working. And my great grandmother was the midwife, knew to take her home and to do what she needed to do because he was breached, the herbs, all that, get her
Mhm.
right, and then she was fine. But I thought about that and I said, those conditions were so hard, right? Being in the field all day, manually picking the berries and all of that. But then God gave me an awareness for our ancestors. They were able to tap into an ethos of ease doing hard
Mm.
work. Think about slaves
Mhm.
picking cotton,
Mhm.
sugar cane. They were able to tap into an ethos that put them in another plane
Mm.
to get through it. We can do
Mhm.
the same
We can do
thing.
the same thing to get through this.
Yes. But that also releases we have quiet stillness,
Yeah.
meditative practices that can get us to a place where we then come up with these solutions and we see
Mm.
all along you had it inside you. You just didn't know.
Girlfriends, do you now see why I asked her to come speak at Girlfriend Gathering? Oh,
Look, we
this
around and unbothered.
conversation has been soul, just, oh my goodness, to my core. And I know people are like, well, I need more information about Unbound and Unbothered.
Yes,
Tell
ma'am.
people what's on the horizon, how they can
Yes.
follow you, give them all the
Yes,
information.
thank you for that opportunity. So you can find me at the Talent Cornerstone on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn quite a bit. I use LinkedIn most frequently. You can find me at Ayana Fernandes Pilgrim, and also follow our business page, The Talent Cornerstone Co. Facebook also, The Talent Cornerstone. So please check me out. Also, our website is thetalentcornerstone.com. So making it super easy for you to find me and my work. Super excited about the launch of Unbound and Unbothered. So it's my signature offering. So I will have a podcast that launches next month under that name. So I've been glad to be here today to kind of practice and getting ready for my own podcast, Unbound and Unbothered. And then I have two signature coaching offers under that same name. One is executive coaching, one-on-one private sessions that can be had. And then the second is a group coaching offer, because we're launching this in community at the end of Black History Month. So I'm super excited about that. And folks can go ahead on the website and fill out just a brief 2-minute form. Tell me about yourself and schedule yourself for a 30-minute clarity session, and we'll get into it more. But thank you so much for listening. And thank you so much for the invitation to be in community with you. And I can't wait till March.
So, as we close tonight's conversation, I actually want to honor what's been named, what's been uncovered, and released in this space. We talked about a loud quaking, not as chaos, but as clarity, a naming of this moment in the workforce, especially as Black women, where it once was sustainable, we're no longer holding it. So, how it's interrupting us, those familiar paths, how those signals are no longer familiar. What stood out for you? What provided you with clarity? What stood out so clearly is this for me. Reinvention is not an individual act, it's a communal one. In seasons of disruption, meaningful support looks more like advice, doesn't necessarily look like advice. It's truth, it's grief, it's imagination, it's becoming. Like leaders, organizations who listen differently, design differently, lead with humanity at the center, and then comes the strategy, the courage to build a new blueprint rooted in your values, not just the urgency, the willingness to let go of people-pleasing, perfectionism, respectability in the politics, and keep us all feeling bound. All of those things. The invitation to engage tools like AI, not from a place of fear, but from discomfort, discernment, being able to be innovative, expand your purpose, not erase it. So here's your action step. I want you to get still. Ask yourself what is being shaken loose in you. What's actually being revealed? Release what no longer fits. Even if it's uncomfortable, reimagine what's possible, even in the middle of uncertainty. Choose one value you will center yourself in for your next decision, and let it guide how you lead, create, and respond. This is how we become unbound and unbothered. Not disconnected, but deeply grounded, not reckless, but rooted. And absolutely, this is not a time to shrink, but it's a time to get clear. The quaking is not your undoing, it is your becoming. And as always, remember, there is power in the middle of your flip, even when you're experiencing adversity. I'll see you next week.